and I do hereby declare that Andy Burnham is duly elected. Thank you.
Well, it's actually happening. Andy Burnham is halfway up Downing Street in his flip-flops. Yes, Manchester's self-appointed philosopher king, who has spent the last few months U-turning on everything from rerunning Brexit to letting in more migrants or whether men can use women loos. Yeah, that guy, he's somehow convinced a significant swathe of the Makerfield constituency that being aggressively ordinary is the same thing as being competent. And now he's positioned for the ultimate prize. Number 10, the big chair in the big smoke, the red box in his hands, down in that London. Allegedly, it's all for us. Well, frankly, God help us all then. If you want to understand what a Burnham premiership is going to look like, you don't need to read a manifesto, which is lucky because there isn't actually one, but more on that later. No, you just need to endure approximately 90 seconds of a man standing in light precipitation, radiating sincerity like a damp Labrador. Yes, you've seen his videos, but Andy's not scary. Andy's nice. He likes football. He wears a t-shirt to work and has cool new trainers. He talks about community and people and coming together with all the conviction of someone who's said those words so many times they can no longer hear them. And that's precisely what makes Andy Burnham dangerous. Because what's really coming is a radical transformation of Britain's economy, its public services, its relationship with business and enterprise, and all served up, though, with the reassuring effect of a man who's just popped in to see an elderly neighbour. Nothing to worry about, just a wet Monday, warmth. Thanks, everybody. While that bedside manner may be welcome from, say, a vet who's about to put down a much-loved family pet, is it really enough of a qualification for leadership? Andy's daily video homilies, he refuses to engage with pretty much all of anything media that's not lefty, they are toe-curling in the extreme. My favourite one, a wet Monday. Sunblock definitely not needed this week, but the wetness is more than compensated with the warmth on the doorstep. Thanks, everybody. This is the man who wants the nuclear codes. A man who, faced with full terrifying complexity of the 21st century geopolitics, has chosen to communicate almost exclusively through weather updates and vague sentiments. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for what, Andy? For forcing a by-election on the poor people of Makerfield who've had to endure this carnival of cringe for the last 4 weeks? There's a glossy serenity to these videos. They look like a man who's almost achieved inner peace, or possibly just hasn't had enough coffee. He gazes with those big eyelashes into the camera, with the expression of someone who's just decided that seeming thoughtful is enough to actually being thoughtful. But I have news for you folks. This Andy Namby-Pamby act isn't fooling me. Just watch if, or well, frankly, I should probably say when, Andy Burnham becomes the Prime Minister. The lurch leftwards will give the country the kind of collective G-force you'd get on a rocket. Your wages, they will become Andy Burnham's new bank account. Taxes are going to go up. He's all but said it. And you know what? They're going to go up significantly. But they'll go up creatively, imaginatively, with the evangelical zeal of a man who genuinely believes that your money is better managed by a government committee in Salford than the person who actually earned it. And what are they going to fund exactly? Well, more welfare, wholesale renationalisation, renewing union powers to a degree that would make Arthur Scargill misty-eyed. We're talking, in essence, about a return to the 1970s, the golden era of the 3-day week, bin strikes and power cuts, except this time we're going to do it to crap music. The Burnham years are going to be, you can see it already, accompanied by whatever joyless guitar band he's endorsed at his latest campaign rally. But Andy Burnham has never met an industry he didn't want to bring into public ownership. Rail, water, naturally, energy, of course. He spent years, a whole career, coddling organised labour with the tenderness of a man who's never actually run anything, let alone a business. He's never had to make payroll or explain why a customer package hasn't arrived weeks later because the drivers are out on protest at a 0.3% differential rate in shift allowances. No, he's never had to do any of that. He sees his unions, mates, as not as a once legitimate voice among many complex arguments in an economic system, but a moral force, righteous, misunderstood, and deserving for whatever blank cheque they demand. What they want historically, though, is always the same. Money, less work, and less accountability. Under Andy Burnham, you thought Angie Rayner was bad. Under Andy Burnham, they're going to get all of that. All of that, plus a nice, fuzzy, warm message on the doorstep, filmed in some light drizzle. But don't worry, it will come with a hefty dose of provincial decency to cover up the whole enterprise. But who voted for this? Yeah, a few thousand people in Makerfield have voted for Andy Burnham. But that's not a leadership election, that's a coup. Prime Ministers have been replaced before, of course. Look at, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, to name but a few. But they actually stood for a general election under their party's manifesto before they were shoehorned in by a few more thousand people who happened to be party political members. But they were tried and they were tested. Burnham, he stood in Makerfield on a hollow, empty manifesto of promising to think hard about the big issues. And he studiously avoided telling us what he really thinks about them. And now he's asking to be the Prime Minister without setting out what he's really going to do. The arrogance of asking to be anointed rather than even bothering to set out his stall or be gently challenged by anyone who's not a lefty in a leadership election, and then to say that's in the national interest, is as arrogant as it is dishonest. Though, given he lost the last two leadership elections he'd already run in spectacular style, if you recall, you can see why he's now twice bitten and also rather shy. This is a guy who couldn't even beat Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband! He lost to Ed Miliband. And now we're being asked to just simply put him in Downing Street without testing him? What are we meant to judge him on? Yes, he painted some buses yellow in Manchester. And yes, he splashed around the allowance given him to the Treasury, by the Treasury, to do nice things in Manchester. Yes, he let some Man United players build some skyscrapers. Great, but that was the easy part. Saying yes to people and bigging up your bit of the world, who wouldn't want to do that? That's fun. We joke about his flip-flops and the constant changing of his mind, like a weather vane. But he had the luxury to be that weather vane and speak in vague platitudes as mayor because it didn't matter what he thought. It didn't matter because he wasn't really in charge of anything. Well, that's a very different kettle of fish to being the Prime Minister, where every single waking hour of the day, there's a queue around the block outside of your office of people who are demanding you yield your power. The power to choose, to make big decisions boldly and quickly, and without the ability for a few weeks later to simply change your mind. Because you know what? When you're Prime Minister, the money's already been spent. The spades are already in the ground, or frankly, the bomb has already been dropped. Andy Burnham is asking for the highest honour this country can give a single individual, to lead it, to be the Prime Minister. He at least should have the decency to stress test any of the things he's trying to do. And I don't mean stress test in the drizzle and more videos about the weather. A leadership election is the absolute bare minimum. A battle of ideas, you could call it. Dress it up however you want. It doesn't have to be that long. But the idea of a coronation cannot be allowed to happen.